Chosen one, heaven has pressed pause around your life. You have felt it, the stillness, the unanswered prayers that echo louder than words. It is not because you are forgotten. It is because you are being refined. There comes a time in every chosen one's journey when the heavens seem silent, when provision feels delayed, and every door that once opened now creaks shut. But this silence is not abandonment. It's the sound of heaven working behind the veil. You've mistaken the pause for rejection, yet heaven calls it preparation. You see, the kingdom does not release gold into untested hands. Before God lets increase rest upon you, He watches how you handle delay. Waiting reveals loyalty. Waiting reveals faith. Waiting reveals who you are when no one applauds. There was once a chosen one named Aaron, a dreamer who prayed for years for stability. Every time abundance approached, it slipped through his fingers like water. He blamed the world, the economy, even himself. But one night, in a dimly lit room filled with unpaid bills, a whisper came. I am not withholding wealth. I am withholding waste. That night, Aaron wept not in defeat, but in realization. God was not punishing him. He was preparing him to carry weight without crumbling. Chosen one, your waiting season is not a prison, it's a classroom. The drought you see around you is heaven's curriculum, like a seed buried in darkness before the sprout. You are hidden only to grow in silence. You ask, why does it seem like others rise faster, but their ascent may be wide, not deep? You, however, are being rooted before rising. Trees that reach high must first dig low. The deeper the foundation, the greater the future structure. Do not despise this stillness. The same God who multiplied 5 loaves can multiply your lack into legacy. He is teaching you to see provision not as numbers, but as nourishment for purpose. There is a scripture that breathes life into this truth. It is written in the book of Haggai, chapter 1, verse 6. You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat but never have enough. You clothe yourselves, but are not warm. You earn wages into purses with holes. Let that sink in. That verse isn't condemnation, it's revelation. Heaven is exposing where your purse has holes. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's control. Maybe it's trusting the paycheck more than the provider. God allows struggle not to shame you, but to show you where your faith leaks. This is the divine paradox. Lack trains you to see who sustains you. When the flow stops, your eyes lift. When the account runs dry, your spirit begins to cry out. That's when heaven draws near, not when you're full, but when you're empty enough to listen. Picture this, a sculptor standing over a block of marble. Every strike looks destructive, yet every fragment that falls away reveals the masterpiece within. That's you. Every no, every delay, every disappointment is a chisel, removing what cannot go into your next level. You've been saying, I'm ready for overflow. Heaven replies, show me you can steward little with joy, because how you handle lack proves how you'll handle plenty. You're not in punishment, you're in qualification. Chosen one, this is your refinement season. God is testing your posture before He increases your platform. He's teaching you that financial peace starts not in your bank, but in your belief. When you anchor your hope in His provision, even scarcity can't shake you. Maybe you feel tired emotionally, spiritually, financially. But remember this, the pause is not permanent. It's strategic. Heaven's pauses are timed with precision. They end the moment your heart aligns with divine order. The wind will shift soon. You will look back and realize the drought was never random. Every delay was direction. Every silence was strategy. And when the flow returns, it will not trickle. It will rush. Pure and unstoppable. Because it will now flow through a vessel that knows its source. If this message stirs something deep within you, take a moment, breathe, reflect, and acknowledge what heaven is awakening. Then, as an act of faith, like and share this message so another chosen one can find their meaning in the pause. Comment the number 777 below a symbol of divine completion and subscribe to stay connected. Because your breakthrough story is only beginning to unfold. You are not waiting for abundance. Abundance is waiting for you to become the one who can carry it. The pause before your breakthrough is not heaven's silence, it's heaven's strategy. Chosen one. The law of provision is not a mystery, it is order. Heaven never blesses outside of alignment. You can pray for overflow, but heaven only releases what obedience can sustain. Provision is not a reward for effort, it is the fruit of surrender. You have been told to chase opportunities, to grind harder, to never rest. But that rhythm is the rhythm of the world, not of the kingdom. In the kingdom, supply follows submission. When the heart bows, doors open. When pride leads, heaven closes its hand. You've seen this pattern before, moments when everything seemed to flow effortlessly, and others when even simple things became a battle. Those are not coincidences. Each moment of lack or overflow traces back to one thing: alignment. There is a spiritual law that cannot be broken. Obedience activates provision. It's not about the size of your faith, but the direction of it. Faith pointed at self creates exhaustion. Faith anchored in God creates endurance. Think of the river. It does not fight to flow. It simply follows the path carved by its source. The moment it tries to create its own route, it dries up. You are that river. Every time you have tried to force your way, to fix what was meant to be surrendered, the flow has slowed. But when you yield, when you whisper, "Your will, not mine," something invisible begins to shift. There was once a woman named Leora, a quiet believer who worked 3 jobs, convinced that more work would equal more blessing. Yet no matter how she toiled, her finances never rose. One evening, exhausted and weeping, she felt a simple instruction: rest. At first, she resisted, fearing that rest meant laziness. But when she obeyed, she noticed favor meeting her without striving, unexpected discounts, sudden clients, debt forgiven. She learned that obedience had accomplished what endless effort never could. This is what many chosen ones forget: provision is not earned, it is entrusted. God doesn't bless busyness, He blesses obedience. The spiritual law of provision says, when you align with divine purpose, supply finds you. Even creation obeys this order. The sun rises when commanded. The sea stops where He said, enough. The birds never worry about their next meal, yet they are fed. Only man wrestles with the rhythm of trust. The Word of God shines on this truth. According to what is revealed in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 2, all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you if you listen to The voice of the Lord. Notice that phrase, overtake you. It means you won't have to chase. The blessing will find you in motion, moving in obedience. The struggle begins when we try to overtake the blessing instead of letting it overtake us. Chosen one. Sometimes the reason your finances feel fragile is because you are trying to feed what God never told you to build. You are investing energy in assignments that heaven did not authorize. Every act outside His voice drains your provision. Every act within His instruction multiplies it. Obedience may look slow, but it always arrives on time. God's ways are not delayed, they are deliberate. The manna in the wilderness came daily, not all at once, because heaven was teaching Israel to depend, not to store. When you learn that lesson, you move from panic to peace. Provision is not just money, it's timing, opportunities, and people positioned to bless you. But heaven only introduces you to those people when your spirit matches their frequency of obedience. That is why rushing ahead has cost you before you met people you weren't ready for. And doors you opened with effort later closed with exhaustion. You must learn the quiet art of spiritual timing. When God says wait, it's not delay, it's divine coordination. He is setting the stage for provision to arrive when your heart can handle it. So rest in this. The law of provision is already working for you. Even now, unseen hands are arranging what obedience has authorized. You do not have to fight for what is promised. You only have to flow with it. Keep walking in the rhythm of surrender. Provision will meet you at the place where obedience and peace intersect, not one step before, not one step after. And when it comes, it won't whisper. It will rush in like wind through an open gate. You'll recognize it instantly, not by how it looks, but by how it feels effortless, peaceful, right. That's how you'll know heaven's provision has finally caught up with your obedience. Because in the end, chosen one, the real miracle isn't what arrives in your hands. It's what changes in your heart while you wait, the quiet confidence that you were never chasing blessings. You were being shaped to become one. Chosen one. Every financial storm you've faced has carried a hidden question. Where have you anchored your trust? You've said, God, I believe you'll provide. Yet when the pressure came, you reached for what you could control. You've relied on plans, numbers, and people, hoping they'd give you stability. But heaven has been gently dismantling false foundations so you could finally stand on truth. The most dangerous poverty isn't empty pockets, it's a heart full of fear. You've seen this cycle. The moment you get ahead, something slips. A job shifts. A friend withdraws. A door closes. You call it bad luck. But it's not that. It's divine redirection. God has been removing everything that competes for His place in your trust. When you depend on what you can count, you limit what He can multiply. The currency of heaven isn't money, it's faith. And until your confidence moves from calculation to conviction, your spirit will stay tired no matter what you earn. Imagine standing in a harbor during a storm. Boats tied too tightly to the dock are the first to break. The ones that survive loosen their ropes just enough to move with the wind. You, chosen one, have been holding too tightly to control. The storm isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to teach you how to float by faith. There was once a chosen one named Mara. She tithed faithfully, served faithfully, yet fear ruled her mind. She planned every cent, prayed every night, but never felt peace. One evening, while sitting in silence, she heard in her heart, "You've trusted the math, not me." That sentence broke her. She released her need to predict outcomes, and in the weeks that followed, provision began appearing from unexpected places. God was not waiting for her performance. He was waiting for her surrender. The Word of God declares in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 7, "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him." MC, do you see it? The blessing is not in the earning, it's in the trusting. Confidence in Him creates stability that circumstances can't touch. That's why the storm hasn't destroyed you. It's been refining what you trust. Chosen one. Misplaced trust will always produce exhaustion. You were never designed to carry the weight of outcomes. God's system is not built on anxiety, it's built on alignment. When your heart leans fully into Him, the pressure to figure everything out begins to dissolve. You've been watching others rise faster, wondering what you're missing. But what you see as delay might be protection. God won't let you build success on a cracked foundation. He'd rather pause your progress than let you prosper in pride. Learn this sacred rhythm. Trust first. Then Z. Believe before balance. Faith before formula. The world says, "Show me, then I'll believe." Heaven says, "Believe, then I'll show you." Right now, release that invisible tension in your chest. You don't need to know how it will work out. You just need to know who's working it out. If this truth resonates deep in your spirit, write in the comments, "My faith is anchored." Say it not as a hope, but as a declaration, because when you affirm that your faith is anchored, you remind your soul that storms don't move anchors, they prove them. You're not drowning, you're learning how to float on trust. Keep repeating it until peace replaces panic. Whisper it when doubt rises. Declare it when fear calls. You are stepping into a season where trust becomes your currency and peace becomes your profit. Chosen one. The moment you stop leaning on your own strength, heaven leans in closer. That's when the tide turns, not because you worked harder, but because you finally let the provider take his rightful place. And when that shift happens, something sacred awakens within you. You begin to see that provision was never about transactions, it was always about transformation. What God truly wanted was not your striving, but your surrender, not your busyness, but your belief. Trust changes your vision. You stop looking at what's missing and start recognizing what's multiplying. Gratitude replace panique. And even in the quiet, you sense movement. You realize that heaven's silence is not absence, it's strategy. This is the freedom God has been calling you into, a life where your heart no longer trembles at numbers, where peace becomes the atmosphere of your decisions. In that posture, prosperity becomes inevitable, because you finally flow with the rhythm of grace. So, stay anchored. Let trust become your language, and watch as every closed door begins to open without effort. Chosen one. There are battles that happen in silence, wars not fought with swords, but with scarcity. The enemy knows that if he can choke your confidence through financial pressure, he can silence your purpose. Many of your struggles haven't been random. They've been strategic attacks designed to make you doubt your identity and question God's faithfulness. You've noticed it, how moments of progress are followed by sudden setbacks. How something always breaks when your spirit starts to rise. It's not coincidence. It's warfare. The enemy cannot curse what God has blessed, but he can distract it, delay it, and drain its energy until it forgets who it is. That's why your finances have been under siege, because your calling carries weight. The devil does not waste resources on the average. He targets those who carry light. You've been assigned battles that match your destiny, not your weakness. Every attack against your provision was meant to interrupt your mission, to make you believe you were disqualified from abundance. But what he didn't understand is this: lack can't kill a soul anchored in purpose. You've been walking through a battlefield disguised as bills, obligations, and closed doors. Yet even in the struggle, heaven has been training your discernment. You're learning the difference between earthly resistance and divine redirection. Sometimes, what looks like loss is protection, God blocking what would have broken you later. Think of Gideon, hiding from his enemies, convinced he was too small for the task. But heaven called him mighty warrior before he ever lifted a sword. That's you, chosen one. You've been fighting hidden wars, thinking you're surviving. But heaven sees you as victorious already. It was proclaimed in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. End point. This battle for your provision is not physical, it's spiritual. Every thought of fear, every whisper of "you'll never make it," every sleepless night is part of the enemy's arsenal. He attacks the mind because the mind manages faith. If he can convince you to panic, he can control your perspective. That's why this season demands spiritual awareness. You can't fight anxiety with anxiety, you conquer it through truth. When you feel fear creeping in, remind yourself, the same God who fed Elijah through ravens, who poured oil from a widow's jar, who multiplied loaves in the wilderness, that same God still governs your economy. Financial warfare often looks like delay and depletion, but underneath it, heaven is building your authority. You're learning to speak from revelation, not reaction. You're realizing that faith is not denial of reality, it's defiance against despair. You've survived moments that should have broken you. You've seen days when nothing added up. Yet somehow, you were sustained. That's not coincidence, that's covenant. The enemy hoped that lack would silence you, but it has sharpened you instead. You've learned to pray louder when pressure increases, to praise deeper when nothing makes sense. That's the mark of someone who's been through spiritual warfare and lived to tell the story. Picture a diamond before it shines. It's buried in darkness, crushed by pressure, cut by precision. The process is violent, but the result is brilliance. You, too, are being refined in that pressure. The enemy's attacks are being turned into God's tools. Every financial hit that didn't destroy you has deposited discernment inside you. You now see what you once ignored: spiritual patterns, emotional traps, people who drain your energy. You're becoming strategic. That's how heaven turns warfare into wisdom. Chosen one. Remember, light always draws opposition. The moment you began walking in purpose, hell took notice. But power belongs to God, and He never loses a battle. He allows every delay, every scarcity, every restless night is being recorded in heaven's ledger. None of your endurance is wasted, and though it feels invisible, victory has already begun. The enemy's tactics are collapsing because revelation has entered the field, You no longer panic when provision wavers. You discern. You no longer beg for rescue. You command peace. That's the transformation warfare was meant to produce. So, lift your head. This isn't the end of your story. It's the middle of your training. The same battle that tried to bury you will one day become the testimony that feeds nations. What the enemy used to intimidate you, heaven will use to elevate you. You were not created to be crushed by financial storms. You were created to stand inside them, radiant and resolute, declaring with quiet certainty that no weapon visible or invisible can prosper against one who knows their source. Chosen one. Have you ever felt that strange ache, the feeling of being almost there? Every time you reach for breakthrough, something pulls back. You take one step forward, then 2 steps back. The deal nearly closes. The promotion almost happens. The door almost opens, and then it slips away. That's not failure, that's a signal. Heaven uses almost to prepare you for enough. No, these cycles of almost are not curses. They are mirrors. They show you where your faith wavers, where your patience wears thin, where your heart still wrestles between striving and surrender. The pattern isn't punishment, it's pattern recognition, heaven helping you see what still needs alignment. You've seen this movie before. Every time the blessing gets close, pressure increases, distractions appear, doubt rises. You start wondering if it's worth trying again. But hear this, every almost is an altar. It's the place where heaven watches your response. Will you give up, or will you grow up? There was a chosen one named Eliam, a musician who wrote songs about faith, but quietly doubted his own future. He once told God, "If you bless me, I'll serve you forever." Yet every opportunity fell through. For years he sang with passion, but earned little. One night, frustrated and near quitting, he heard a whisper, "Eliam, I'm not withholding success. I'm teaching you to sing for me, not for applause." Lo, that moment changed everything. His next song came from surrender, not ambition. It reached hearts across the world. What he thought was delay was actually development. The truth is, chosen one, your almost seasons are not denials. They are divine checkpoints. God wants to know, will you still praise when the promise pauses? Can you trust him when the reward hides behind the next corner? We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 37, verse 7. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. O weeper, that scripture is your map. Patience is not passive. It's powerful. It's choosing to stay planted when everything in you wants to run. Because if you dig up your seed in frustration, you forfeit your harvest. Chosen one. Your almost moments have been sacred rehearsals for abundance. You've been trained in scarcity so that when increase arrives, you'll recognize its purpose. Every tear you've shed in the waiting has watered something eternal. Nothing has been wasted. And now, as this message reaches your heart, you're being reminded you are not forgotten. You're just in the stretch between preparation and fulfillment. This tension isn't punishment, it's proof that something is about to break open. If this message has poured peace into your soul, take a gentle moment to help it reach others who may be standing at their own almost. Like this message, if it has spoken to your spirit, every click is a small spark that tells the unseen currents. More hearts still need light. Share it with someone you know who's been on the edge of giving up. One share is like dropping a lantern on a dark road. Someone, somewhere, will find their way by that light. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not for numbers, but to stay in the flow of words that keep your flame alive when the world tries to dim it. Let this be your quiet agreement with heaven to stay connected to truth. And about donation, hear this clearly: it is never a price, never a toll. Think of it as releasing a single seed into fertile ground. You may never see where the river carries that seed, but it will bloom in places you'll never travel. Every gift, no matter the size, whispers to heaven, keep the message flowing. Although, if your heart feels stirred to be part of that river, give from peace, not pressure, from gratitude, not guilt. And if you cannot give now, I know this: your prayer, your time, your listening heart are offerings already recorded in light. So breathe. Let gratitude rise. You are in the middle of becoming. The almost that frustrated you yesterday is the training that will protect your promise tomorrow. Stay faithful in the stretch. Heaven sees you, because one day soon, chosen one, the door that always seemed to slip away will swing wide, not because you pushed harder, but because your heart finally aligned with its timing. And you'll look back, smile, and whisper, now I understand why I had to wait. And when that day comes, you won't rush to grab the blessing, you'll simply walk through it, calm and certain, because by then, you'll know the truth. The waiting never wasted you. It sculpted you into someone who could carry divine abundance with grace. Chosen one. You have carried too much for too long. You've tried to fix everything to make it work, to hold it all together. You've been the planner, the protector, the one who steps in when others fall apart. But somewhere along the way, you began to believe that you were the source, and that belief has been silently exhausting your soul. The curse of self-reliance hides behind noble intentions. You tell yourself you're being responsible, but inside, you've replaced trust with tension. You move through life like a soldier who never removes their armor, always braced, always alert, always trying to manage outcomes that only heaven can control. You've mistaken strength for control, but they are not the same. Real strength is surrender, the ability to trust when you can't see the plan. Control is fear dressed in strategy. It keeps your hands busy and your heart restless. There was once a chosen one named Lyra. She built her world on discipline and order. Her calendar was full, her plans flawless, her goals detailed down to the minute. Yet the more she controlled, the emptier she felt. One day, everything she had built began to unravel. Business deals collapsed, friends drifted, and silence filled the spaces she once filled with activity. At first, she panicked. Then one morning, as the sun rose through her window, a quiet realization dawned. Maybe God let it all fall apart so I could finally fall into Him. That was the day she exhaled for the first time in years. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Now, that ancient wisdom still whispers through time. Leaning on your own understanding feels safe until it snaps beneath the weight of uncertainty. God never asked you to carry the load alone. He asked you to walk beside Him. You've been pushing the cart of life uphill, forgetting that heaven gave you a yoke, meant for two, chosen one. You were never designed to be self-sufficient. You were designed to be spirit-sustained. Every time you insist on handling it yourself, you block the flow of divine assistance waiting to move through you. Think of a kite in the sky. It soars not because it pulls harder, but because it surrenders to the wind. If it cuts the string to prove its independence, it crashes. You, too, were meant to rise by yielding, not by resisting. The curse of self-reliance disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers, "No one will help you. You must do it yourself." And you listen, because you've been let down before. But every time you choose isolation over invitation, heaven loses an opportunity to show you grace through others. Let this be your awakening. Your worth is not measured by how much you can carry. It's revealed by how deeply you can trust. When you finally release the weight of self-reliance, you make room for miracles. Some miracles don't happen because we don't believe. Others don't happen because we won't let go. You've been holding the rope so tightly that your hands are bleeding, not realizing that the rope leads to nothing. It's time to open your palms and let grace breathe again. This is the paradox of surrender. The moment you release control, peace begins to rule. The doors you've been forcing open begin to swing freely. The opportunities you chased start chasing you. Heaven responds not to panic, but to posture. Chosen one. This is the call, not to do more, but to trust deeper. Stop treating surrender as the last resort. Make it your first reflex. When you finally understand that obedience is lighter than control, life begins to flow again. Pause here. Feel that tension in your chest. That's the sound of your spirit longing to rest. You've done enough. You've proved enough. You've carried enough. Now it's time to hand the wheel back to the one who wrote your route before you took your first breath. And if this truth settles in your spirit, write this number in the comments. 444. It's a symbol of divine stability, the reminder that when you align your steps with heaven's rhythm, what once shook you will now support you. By typing it, you're not performing an act of superstition, you're marking agreement. You're saying, "I choose peace over pressure." Then, let this number be a silent prayer written in the language of faith. Each digit echoes a promise, structure, balance, order restored. Chosen one. When you stop reaching for control, you start receiving guidance. Life doesn't become easier, it becomes clearer, because grace does the heavy lifting when surrender opens the way. So loosen your grip. Let the river of God's timing carry you again. You were never meant to be the engine, only the vessel that glides when wind meets water. Chosen one. Sometimes the reason the flow stops is simple. The seed was never sown. You've been asking for harvest without planting what heaven can multiply. You've been praying for increase while holding too tightly to what was meant to be released. The principle of provision has never changed. What you release in faith, God breathes upon. Many mistake this law for transaction, as if God were a vendor and giving a purchase. But giving in the kingdom is never about buying favor. It's about trusting source. When you hold a seed, it seems small, even insignificant. But heaven doesn't see size, it sees surrender. The seed in your hand carries instruction not to stay, but to go. There's an unseen rhythm between giving and receiving, one that cannot be manipulated. If the soil is wrong, meaning the motive, the harvest delays. But when the soil is right, when your giving flows from love, not leverage, heaven cannot resist multiplication. You've said, I don't have much to give. But that's never stopped heaven before. The widow had only a handful of flour and a drop of oil. Yet the jar never ran dry. The boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish fed thousands. The measure doesn't matter. It's the motion that moves mountains. There was once a chosen one named Cale. He worked tirelessly, dreaming of success. Yet nothing seemed to multiply. One night, while counting the little he had left, he heard a quiet whisper, "You've been protecting the seed I asked you to plant." He didn't fully understand, but decided to act. He shared what he had: his time, his skills, his compassion with others in need. Weeks later, opportunities he had chased for years began finding him. Cale learned that when you release what you hold, heaven releases what it's held for you. It is written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 38, "Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap." That verse is not poetry, it's principle. What you give sets spiritual motion into place. But giving is not only about money. Sometimes the seed is forgiveness, sometimes patience, sometimes encouragement. Every act of release creates room for God to refill. Chosen one. Heaven cannot fill closed hands. When you cling to what's left, you tell the universe, "I don't believe there's more coming." But when you open your hands, even trembling, you declare, "I trust the giver more than the gift." That declaration shifts atmospheres. Think of a tree in autumn. Its leaves fall, not because it's dying, but because it's preparing for renewal. If it refused to let go, spring would never come. You, too, must learn the sacred art of release. Every time you give, you are aligning yourself with the cycle of heaven. Inhale and exhale. Receive and release. You may ask, why must it be this way? Because giving rewires the heart. It dethrones greed, humble pride, and awakens gratitude. It reminds you that everything you have is borrowed breath meant to pass through your hands, not stagnate in them. Chosen one. There are blessings waiting on the other side of obedience. You cannot pray your way into what only generosity can unlock. The seed is your sermon. It tells heaven that you trust the process. You've spent years praying for open doors. Yet some doors only open when generosity knocks. Not because God demands payment, but because the act itself purifies the heart that will walk through those doors. Remember this: when you give, heaven watches the posture, not the portion. The woman who dropped 2 coins gave more than the rich who poured from abundance, because her offering carried dependence, not display. So, take this truth and let it settle. Every seed carries a whisper of eternity. You never lose when you give from faith. You simply trade what's temporary for what's eternal. And one day, you'll look back at what you released and realize nothing was ever lost. It was only transformed, multiplied in ways your eyes couldn't see, yet your soul always knew were coming. When that revelation finally roots in your heart, fear loses its grip. You stop giving with worry and start giving with wonder, knowing that heaven always remembers every seed, even the unseen ones. What left your hand never left your destiny. It simply changed form to meet you in the future. So rest in that confidence. Keep your heart open and your spirit generous. The soil of faith never forgets a seed sown in trust. and in due season, your harvest will arrive quietly, abundantly, undeniably. Chosen one. Fear has 1,000 disguises. Sometimes it sounds like logic, sometimes like caution, sometimes like wisdom, but beneath its careful mask, it is still fear. And fear has been quietly governing your financial life far longer than you realize. You've called it being careful, being smart, or being realistic. But heaven sees what it truly is, a barrier between you and abundance. You were not born with fear, you were taught it. Somewhere between childhood trust and adult responsibility, you learned that safety was more valuable than faith. You learned to protect yourself from disappointment by expecting less. You told yourself that playing small was wisdom, but it was really survival. Fear is subtle. It doesn't always scream. It whispers. It tells you, don't risk that. You might lose. It says, hold back. You might regret it. And slowly, those whispers become your inner language until you can't tell the difference between caution and captivity. The invisible prison of fear is built from what-ifs. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I run out? But heaven asks a different question. What if you rise? What if the miracle is waiting on the other side of your courage? There was once a chosen one named Darren. Every opportunity that came his way, he turned down. He told himself it wasn't the right time, or that he wasn't ready. Deep down, he feared success as much as failure. One night, while praying for clarity, he sensed these words. Fear is not protecting you, it's postponing you. That line broke something open. From that day forward, he began taking small steps of faith. Each one looked insignificant, yet each step pulled him closer to freedom. Within a year, what he had feared became familiar, and what was impossible became natural. Fear doesn't always flee instantly. Sometimes it starves when you stop feeding it. Every act of faith is a slow starvation of fear. Every time you obey, even while trembling, the chains loosen a little more. The ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 10, declare, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." End of 4. That promise is not poetic comfort, it's covenant reality. Heaven has never asked you to face fear alone. Divine strength was always assigned to walk beside you. Even in the valley of uncertainty, chosen one. Fear is not simply an emotion, it's a spiritual parasite. It feeds on imagination, grows through memory, and thrives in silence. The only way to kill it is exposure. Speak faith louder than fear. Replace "what if it fails" with "what if God fulfills." Then you've been rehearsing pain before it happens, living in outcomes that haven't even occurred. But faith invites you to see differently, to imagine victory before it manifests. That's not denial, that's divine vision. The economy may fluctuate, opportunities may shift, but heaven's provision never weakens. The same God who sustained Elijah by ravens, who multiplied oil for a widow, who turned scarcity into sufficiency, he hasn't changed his methods. He still meets faith in motion. Fear convinces you that security is found in control. Faith reminds you that security is found in surrender. You will never outthink anxiety, but you can outtrust it. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast sea. Fear says, "You'll drown." Faith says, "Step, and the water will part." You have stood at that shore too long, calculating tides that only heaven can command. The time for calculation has passed. Now begins the time for courage. Chosen one. Freedom from fear isn't loud, it's steady. It begins in small choices, choosing peace over panic, faith over forecasting, gratitude over griping. It's built day by day until one morning you wake up and realize the voice of fear has grown quiet. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You'll look back and see that every time you took a trembling step, heaven met you with solid ground. That's how you learn that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's faith that moves anyway. And when you live like that, provision becomes a byproduct, not a pursuit. Fear loses its hold, and your soul begins to breathe again, light, unburdened, free. When that freedom finally settles inside you, silence feels different. It's no longer the sound of waiting, it's the sound of peace. You stop chasing certainty and start walking with confidence, knowing that fear no longer speaks the loudest in your life. Because, chosen one, courage has taken its place. And where courage lives, lack cannot. Where trust stands, fear has no throne. That's when true abundance begins. Chosen one. The dry seasons of your life have never been punishment, they have been classrooms. You've mistaken lack for rejection, but heaven calls it refinement. Every empty table, every closed door, every prayer that met silence was a lesson wrapped in mercy. God never wastes wilderness. He uses it to shape your wisdom. You've wondered, why does everything I touch seem to take longer to grow? It's because heaven has been cultivating patience in you, the kind that can handle prosperity without pride. You were never being denied, you were being developed. There was once a chosen one named Sariah. For years, she worked faithfully, but saw little fruit. She prayed, fasted, and gave her best. Yet nothing seemed to move. But what she couldn't see was that heaven had placed her in a sacred delay. Every not yet from God was preparing her character for what was coming. And one day, without warning, what had been withheld was released, not because she worked harder, but because she had finally learned contentment in the waiting. That's how the divine process works. Heaven watches not just how you handle blessings, but how you handle the silence between them. It was written in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 4. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. That's the hidden message of your dry seasons. They are not there to break you, but to build completion within you. The drought has been refining what abundance would one day reveal. You see, there are lessons the rain can't teach. Only dryness can show you the strength of your roots. When the soil cracks, when nothing moves, when prayers feel unanswered, that's when the hidden power of faith begins to grow underground. Chosen one. The stillness you're enduring has not been a pause in progress. It's been the planting of perspective. You are learning that maturity isn't found in movement, it's found in trust. Think of a field before harvest. The farmer doesn't panic when the ground looks barren. He knows that unseen work is taking place beneath the soil. You, too, are that field. Heaven has been sowing resilience into your spirit, patience, humility, endurance. These are not small things, they are the foundations of lasting increase. Many crave the fruit, but reject the discipline that produces it. You are different. You are learning to celebrate growth even when it's invisible. You are discovering that peace is wealth, that gratitude is currency, that wisdom is profit, and that, chosen one, is the secret hidden in lack. It trains your spirit to value what truly sustains. It strips away illusions, revealing that you were never meant to chase provision. You were meant to become the kind of person provision chases. The lessons of lack are holy. They teach compassion for others, reverence for process, and confidence in God's timing. You've walked through scarcity, not so you'd fear it, but so you'd master it, so that one day, when abundance comes, it won't own you. So breathe in the stillness. Let the dryness do its work. One day you'll look back and realize that the wilderness didn't take anything from you. It gave you everything you truly needed: discernment, discipline, and divine perspective. If these words reach deep within you, write in the comments, "I'm still growing." Oh, say it with faith, because growth is not always loud. Sometimes it's silent, steady, unseen, like roots strengthening before the bloom. When you write those words, you're declaring that you understand the process now. You're no longer fighting it, you're flowing with it. Chosen one. The drought was never death, it was design. Heaven never wastes pain. Every delay, every silence, every moment of lack was God building endurance into your spirit, so that nothing, not wealth, not fame, not failure, could move you from your foundation again. And that foundation, chosen one, is what will sustain you when abundance finally arrives. You won't chase validation anymore, because you'll know who your source is. The storms that once shook you will now sound like background noise, proof that your roots run deep. When heaven sees you steady in silence, it knows you're ready for overflow. Because increase without insight destroys, but insight turns increase into impact. The season of lack was heaven's classroom. You've graduated with strength that cannot be bought. So, when the rain finally comes, and it will, you'll lift your hands, not in surprise, but in gratitude. You'll understand that the waiting was never wasted. It was worship in disguise. Chosen one. You can feel it, can't you? The shift in the air. Something is aligning again, not because of chance, but because your heart has finally learned to listen. Heaven is moving pieces behind the curtain, preparing you for a season that won't slip away this time. The delay has done its work. The drought has built discipline. Now comes alignment, the meeting of heaven's intention with your obedience. Prophetic alignment is not just about prayer, it's about posture. It's when your actions and your attitude begin to move at the same rhythm as divine purpose. Heaven cannot pour where there is resistance. It pours where there is readiness. Think of a river that has been blocked by stones. It's not that the waters stopped existing, it simply couldn't flow through obstruction. Once those stones are lifted, stones of doubt, fear, resentment, and self-reliance, the current rushes again. That's alignment. There was once a chosen one named Amos. For years, he prayed for overflow. He fasted, declareth, and believed, yet nothing changed. One day, while walking through a field, he noticed a farmer clearing debris from an irrigation path. The farmer smiled and said, "The water was always waiting. The soil just wasn't ready. Those words pierced his soul. Amos realized heaven had never withheld. It was waiting for him to remove the inner blockages, his unforgiveness, his fear, his pride. When he did, opportunities began to appear naturally, not forcefully. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 19, "And my God will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus." That's the promise that undergirds alignment. Supply follows surrender. God is not limited by economy, by systems, or by the logic of the world. What he seeks is cooperation. When your spirit aligns with his rhythm, provision becomes as natural as breath. Chosen one, you are stepping into a time where flow will replace friction. But this is not a season for haste. It's a season for harmony. Don't rush it. Tune to it. Like an instrument in the hands of a skilled musician, your life will play its most beautiful song when it's tuned to divine frequency. And if this message finds you in that quiet space between hope and hesitation, let it remind you, your part is not to force the melody, but to stay tuned. Heaven knows your sound. When your heart is in key, heaven will orchestrate the rest. If these words have stirred something inside you, if they've lifted a weight or sparked a quiet peace, I want to invite you gently, freely, to become part of the ripple. Like this message, if it resonated with your spirit, every like is like lighting a candle in a dark corridor, helping more souls find the same path of clarity you're now walking. Share it with someone you know who might be standing in the tension of waiting. One simple share is like passing a cup of cool water to a weary traveler, small but life-giving. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for numbers, but to stay close to the current of messages that remind you who you are. Think of it as planting your flag beside a well that never runs dry. And for those who feel moved to do more, to pour back into the flow, I speak of donation not as duty, but as partnership. It's like returning a pebble to the river that refreshed you. You're not paying for words. You're participating in the spreading of light. When you give, it becomes a quiet agreement between your heart and heaven's work, a way of saying, let this message reach one more soul who needs to remember their worth. And if you can't give now, please know this: your time, your prayer, your listening are already gifts, heaven treasures. There is no pressure here, only invitation. You're already part of the mission by showing up with an open heart. Chosen one. The current is moving again. You've spent years trying to make things happen. Now you'll watch them unfold naturally. You've shifted from chasing to attracting, from striving to receiving. That's prophetic alignment, the moment when heaven's timing meets your transformation. And as you walk forward, remember, you are not waiting for favor anymore. Favor has been waiting for you, for your readiness, your trust, your surrender. The river is clear. The stones are gone. Flow freely now. And when that flow surrounds you, you'll realize abundance was never about accumulation. It was about alignment, the peace, the provision. The purpose you longed for will all converge effortlessly, because heaven always floods the hearts that finally learn to flow. Chosen one. Some of the weight you've been carrying doesn't even belong to you. It was passed down, not through choice, but through generations. Poverty, fear, and limitation can run through family lines like unspoken traditions, shaping beliefs long before you had the power to question them. You've been walking with invisible chains, carrying struggles that began before you were even born. But this is where the pattern ends. You are the turning point in your lineage, the one chosen to break what others accepted as normal. Your financial struggle hasn't been personal failure, it's been generational warfare. Heaven saw your bloodline and decided that you would be the one to rewrite its story. Every family has inherited mindsets. Some inherit courage, others inherit caution. You may have grown up hearing phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," or "We just have to survive." Those words sounded harmless, but they built walls around your faith. They trained you to fear lack instead of mastering it. You are not cursed. You are called to confront what previous generations couldn't. When you chose faith over fear, when you decided to believe in divine provision instead of repeating old patterns, heaven took notice. You became the intercessor, the breaker, the restorer. There was once a chosen one named Micah. He came from a long line of debt and disappointment. Every man in his family worked hard, yet never prospered. Micah decided to do something strange instead of chasing money. He chased wisdom. He began studying scripture, generosity, and stewardship. Slowly, his mindset changed. He stopped saying, "I can't afford it," and started saying, "God will provide the way." Within years, the family debt that had lasted decades was gone. But more importantly, the fear that fueled that debt was gone too. His children grew up not fearing bills, but believing in blessings. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That's the key. Chosen one transformation starts in the mind. Generational chains are broken first in thought, then in action. Poverty isn't just a lack of resources, it's a mindset of scarcity. And when your mind renews, your reality follows. This breaking process may have been painful. The moment you decided to walk differently, opposition rose. People misunderstood you. They said you were being unrealistic, that you'd fail like everyone else. But what they didn't see was the fire in your spirit, the conviction that you were born to end cycles, not repeat them. Breaking generational patterns is not glamorous. It's gritty. It looks like saying no to habits that feel familiar. It looks like discipline in seasons of temptation. It means building new habits with faith while the old ones try to pull you back. But you were anointed for this. The weight that crushed others will become your testimony. Imagine a chain forged through generations. Each link a mindset, a fear, a story. Now picture a hammer glowing with divine light in your hand. Every act of obedience, every prayer, every moment you choose integrity, that's you striking the chain. Each strike weakens what once seemed unbreakable. Soon, the final link snaps, and freedom echoes through your lineage. Chosen one. This is your spiritual inheritance, the right to live beyond limitation. The fight you're in isn't just for you, it's for every descendant who will come after. You are building a new foundation for generations that will know faith instead of fear, wisdom instead of worry, abundance instead of anxiety. This is legacy work. The ground you're plowing today will become the garden your children walk in tomorrow. Every sacrifice, every lesson, every tear is a seed for their stability. The blessings you cultivate will outlive you. That's how heaven defines wealth. So don't despise the struggle. It's proof that heaven trusted you to be the repairer of the breach. You are standing at the intersection of history and destiny, holding the authority to end what once enslaved your family line. When you look back one day, you'll realize that you didn't just survive the battle, you changed the bloodline. The poverty that ran through generations will find its finish line at your feet, and those who come after you will bless your name. Not for what you earned, but for what you ended. And when they speak of you, they will say, "That was the one who broke the pattern," not because you were perfect, but because you were brave enough to believe differently. Your faith became the bridge between what was and what will never be again. So stand tall. Chosen one. Generational chains have fallen, and legacy has begun to sing your name in heaven's halls. Freedom now flows through your bloodline. Chosen one. True wealth has never been measured in numbers. It has always been measured in covenant. The world chases currency. Heaven builds covenant. Money may come and go, but divine partnership sustains even when the markets shift. You've been asking for financial stability, but heaven's answer isn't just provision, it's relationship. You see, a covenant is not a contract. A contract says, if you do your part, I'll do mine. A covenant says, even when you fail, I remain faithful. That is the difference between worldly wealth and kingdom abundance. The world buys peace, the kingdom births it. For too long, you've measured success by what's visible accounts, possessions, recognition. But heaven looks at alignment. The richest souls are those who understand that they own nothing, yet lack nothing. When your heart is anchored in God's promise, you carry a kind of stability that storms cannot shake. There was once a chosen one named Rowell. He built his fortune, young investments, properties, influence. Yet, even surrounded by abundance, he felt hollow. His wealth was wide, but his peace was shallow. One night, overwhelmed by anxiety, he whispered, "Lord, why do I feel empty when I have everything?" And deep within, he heard a voice answer, "Because you have currency, not covenant." That moment redefined his life. He began to use his resources to build purpose, not power to serve, not to show. And from that shift, joy flowed like a river where striving once ruled. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." Oh, that verse isn't just instruction, it's invitation. When you seek the kingdom, things stop being the pursuit, they become the byproduct. That's covenant. You are no longer chasing blessings. Blessings begin to chase you because heaven recognizes its own chosen one. Many have confused covenant with convenience. Covenant requires trust when logic fails, faith when sight fades, consistency when comfort disappears. It's saying, even if the season shifts, my yes remains the same. That kind of loyalty draws heaven's favor. When you live under covenant, money becomes a messenger, not a master. You use it as a tool, not a trophy. You stop fearing loss because your source is not a paycheck, it's a promise. Think of a tree rooted by the river. Storms may bend its branches, but its roots remain steady because they drink from an unseen flow. That's you when you stand in covenant. Circumstances may sway you, but you'll never be uprooted. The covenant calls you to live differently, to give when fear says, hold back, to rest when anxiety says, hurry, to trust when sight says impossible. And each act of obedience writes your name deeper into heaven's story. This is why the enemy attacks your confidence in God's provision, not because he needs your money, but because he fears your faith. He knows that once you truly understand your covenant, lack loses its grip completely. Chosen one. Covenant wealth is not loud. It's quiet, steady, faithful. It's peace at night when the bills are due, joy when nothing makes sense, and contentment when you could have complained. That's the kind of abundance heaven offers, not fragile fortune, but eternal flow. So today, don't chase the currency of this world. Choose covenant over chaos. Anchor yourself not in what fades, but in what forever stands, because in covenant, you stop begging and start belonging. If this truth has stirred your heart, type this number in the comments. 555. It's a prophetic symbol of grace, multiplied the reminder that divine partnership always produces provision. When you write it, you're not declaring luck, you're declaring loyalty. You're saying, I trust the covenant more than the currency. SV, chosen one. Heaven remembers those who remain faithful in faithless times. And as you walk forward in this sacred partnership, you'll find that every need, every gap, every unanswered prayer begins to align with perfect timing, not because you earned it, but because you belong to the one who never breaks his promise. And when you live that way, something sacred begins to happen. You stop measuring provision by what you can count and start recognizing it by what you can feel. Peace, clarity, direction. That's when you realize covenant wealth was never about things. It was about trust wrapped in timeless grace. Because covenant transforms how you see the world, you stop striving for survival and start walking in stewardship. You wake up knowing that heaven's economy never runs out and that your obedience keeps you connected to it. Every sunrise becomes a reminder. You are not chasing favor, you are carrying it. Chosen one. Delay has a language all its own. It speaks not in words, but in lessons about timing, trust, and transformation. When heaven says, not yet, it isn't withholding love, it's building capacity. You've seen doors stay closed, opportunities pass by, and prayers seem unanswered. But what felt like divine silence was actually divine construction. You've been asking, why is it taking so long? But heaven measures readiness, not rush. God will never place a crown on a head not yet strong enough to carry it. Delay doesn't mean denial, it means development. Every weight in your story has been shaping your spiritual muscles to sustain what's coming. There was once a chosen one named Theon. He prayed for years to step into his calling. But no matter how hard he worked, the door refused to open. One night, weary and questioning, he prayed, Lord, if you won't open it, at least tell me why. And deep within, a whisper came, because you're still learning how to hold what you're asking for. That sentence changed him. He stopped fighting time and started honoring it. Months later, when the opportunity returned, he was no longer anxious, he was anchored. That's the purpose of delay. It turns impatience into preparation. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, Chapter 2, verse 3, For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. That promise is both comfort and command. The vision still stands, but it must unfold within divine sequence. You cannot accelerate a harvest that heaven has scheduled. You can only stay faithful until it arrives. Chosen one, delay is heaven's refining fire. It purifies your motives. It exposes whether you love the promise or the promiser. It teaches you that speed means nothing if it leads you to a place your soul can't survive. You've seen people rise fast and fall faster, but the ones who last are those who let patience do her perfect work. Waiting is not inactivity, it's inner activity. It's the work of alignment happening beneath the surface. Seeds don't sprout because they rush, they sprout because they rest. Likewise, your faith grows roots while you wait. Heaven is anchoring you so that increase won't uproot you. Think of gold refined in the furnace. Fire doesn't destroy the gold. It destroys what isn't gold. Delay works the same way. It burns away impatience, fear, entitlement, and pride until only purity remains. What survives the wait is what's truly worth having. You've been comparing your timeline to others, wondering why their doors opened sooner, but their journey isn't yours. Some run short races, others are called to endurance. You've been chosen for something that requires depth, not speed. Heaven isn't preparing you for a moment, it's preparing you for legacy. Every not yet has been a mercy. If God had given you everything you asked for when you first asked, it might have crushed you. What feels like withholding is actually protecting. You're not behind schedule, you're on heaven's clock, and heaven is never late. Delay also reveals dependence. It exposes whether your hope rests in outcomes or in God Himself. The longer you wait, the clearer your faith becomes. You start to realize that the waiting season wasn't a gap in your story. It was the story, the place where you learned what trust truly means. Chosen one. The waiting room of heaven is holy ground. Many rush through it, missing the treasures hidden there: peace, patience, perspective. But those who linger, who learn, who listen, emerge with a different kind of power, the quiet confidence that cannot be shaken when storms come. So, don't resent the delay, respect it. It's the invisible classroom of destiny. Heaven is aligning people, places, and timing in ways your eyes can't yet perceive. And when all the pieces click into place, it will happen suddenly, the kind of suddenly that only years of waiting can produce. You'll look back and realize that the delay wasn't empty, it was full of preparation, character, and grace. And when the appointed time arrives, you won't just receive the blessing, you'll have become the kind of person who can sustain it. Chosen one, rest in this truth. The waiting has not been wasted. Every tear, every unanswered prayer, every quiet night has been recorded. Heaven has seen it all. And when the vision finally unfolds, it will arrive not a moment too soon, and not a moment too late, exactly on time. Chosen one, now that your heart has been tempered through waiting, heaven begins to teach you strategy. Scarcity trained your spirit. Now wisdom must train your hands. The next stage of your divine journey is learning how to move from survival to stewardship, from reaction to revelation. God's abundance was never meant to be squandered. It is meant to be structured. Many pray for overflow, but forget that without vessels, even miracles spill. Heaven does not pour into chaos. It pours into clarity. This is why you've had to unlearn impulsiveness, to exchange panic for planning, emotion for execution. There was once a chosen one named Jonah, a visionary filled with passion, but void of structure. Every idea sparkled for a season and then disappeared because he never built a system to hold it. One day, exhausted by repetition, he prayed, "Why does everything start strong and end scattered?" In the quiet, he heard a phrase that rewired his thinking, "My blessing needs boundaries." That moment marked his turning point. He began writing plans, setting priorities, and creating space for sustainability. Within months, what had been chaos became clarity, and his life began to bear lasting fruit. It is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 5, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." That verse is more than advice, it's spiritual law. Diligence is not merely effort, it is disciplined foresight. Heaven partners with planners because planning honors the blessing. Strategy is not a lack of faith, it's faith made visible. Chosen one. This is the season to build structure around your calling. You've been carried by inspiration long enough. Now wisdom must take the lead. Strategy is sacred because it proves you expect success. When you prepare a place for the promise, heaven fills it. Think of Noah. Before rain ever touched the ground, he built an ark on dry land. That's faith turned into framework. When the flood came, it was the structure that saved him. Likewise, heaven is calling you to construct what will sustain your future habits. Boundaries, plans, disciplines. You've been through the refining fire. Now you must master the rhythm of responsibility for the chosen one. Stewardship is worship. Managing well what God entrusts is how you say, "I honor the gift." The miracle is never just the provision, it's the wisdom to preserve it. Sometimes, divine wisdom feels ordinary. It sounds like budgeting, saving, resting, organizing. Yet those ordinary acts become extraordinary when done with heavenly intent. Don't despise the practical. It's often the platform for the prophetic. Heaven isn't asking you to dream smaller, it's asking you to dream smarter. Dreams without discipline dissolve. Passion without process perishes. You've been entrusted with vision, now you must protect it with systems. Imagine a vineyard. The vines may carry fruit, but it's the trellis that keeps them upright. Without structure, fruit rots. Your strategies are that trellis, invisible yet essential. Build them prayerfully, but build them boldly. Chosen one. You're entering a chapter of divine order. The chaos that once surrounded you is settling because heaven is teaching you governance. You are learning that abundance without accountability becomes a curse. But abundance married to structure becomes legacy. Do not confuse control with stewardship. Control tries to force outcomes. Stewardship nurtures them. You cannot command growth, but you can create the environment where it happens. That's the wisdom heaven now imparts to build peace around your purpose, so that what you birth can breathe. And understand this, divine strategy is not about rigid rules, it's about rhythm. God's order flows like the tide, steady, consistent, unhurried. When you align your daily rhythm with that flow, anxiety loses its grip. You stop reacting to emergencies and start responding to revelation. Every plan written in prayer becomes a prophecy waiting for execution. Write them, refine them. Let your structure reflect your faith, because faith without form fades quickly. But faith expressed through form endures. Chosen one. Heaven is positioning you to be not just a receiver, but a ruler, one who governs blessing wisely, who multiplies what's given. You are stepping into your role as a builder of order, a keeper of divine balance. So take your time, design with diligence, build with patience, because what you are constructing now will outlive you. And when others see the fruit of your stability, they will realize that divine strategy was never about control. It was about cooperation with heaven's rhythm. And when that rhythm settles in, you'll notice how peace begins to govern. What pressure once controlled? The same storms that used to shake you now pass without damage because your foundation is no longer fragile. It's fortified by wisdom. You've become both the builder and the blessing. Your structure now sings stability, and heaven smiles upon the order you've embraced. Chosen one. This is the part where heaven begins to restore what was lost. The long winters of your struggle have not been for nothing. Every seed sown in tears, every act of quiet faith, every hour spent believing, when it made no sense, they have all been recorded. Now, the divine economy turns in your favor. This is not just about money. It's about becoming a vessel through which provision flows, a carrier of kingdom economy. God never intended for you to merely survive. He called you to distribute light, to fund hope, to pour where others have dried out. Restoration means being trusted again with resources, not to hoard them, but to heal with them. There was once a chosen one named Ezra. He had nothing left after years of failure. One day, sitting by an abandoned field, he whispered, "Lord, if you restore me, I will restore others." That prayer shifted something in the unseen. Slowly, opportunities returned. The very land he thought was barren began to bloom again, not because he forced it, but because his heart had shifted from scarcity to service. As declared in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, "And I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Restoration isn't just repayment, it's redemption. It's heaven saying, "You may have lost time, but I can fold time back into blessing." What's coming isn't compensation, it's continuation, as if the drought never existed. Chosen one. The restoration of kingdom economy begins with vision. You are not just blessed to have, you are blessed to build. The resources returning to you carry assignment. Heaven is looking for stewards who will fund healing, sow truth, and ignite transformation. When you carry divine wealth, it no longer owns you, it serves you. This restoration isn't loud or flashy, it's quiet, sacred, gradual, like dawn creeping over the horizon after a long night. One morning you'll realize the heaviness has lifted, provision will come naturally, peace will feel permanent, and gratitude will replace fear. That's the sound of restoration taking root. And now, chosen one, if these words have found their way into your heart, if you can feel this truth stirring like morning light within your spirit, then I invite you, gently, freely, to join the flow that carries this message further. Like this message, if it has resonated with something deep inside you, think of it as lighting a candle in a long hallway. One small flame that helps someone else see their way home. Share this message if it reminded you of your worth. When you share it, you're not spreading content, you're scattering seeds. Somewhere, someone will read it and breathe again because your hands released hope into the world. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for the sake of numbers, but as an act of staying connected to the voice that reminds you who you are when life tries to make you forget. Consider it like returning to a well whose water never runs dry. And for those whose hearts feel moved to support the message's journey, hear this with peace. Donation is not payment, it's participation. It's like placing another stone in a riverbed so the current can carry this light farther. You are not obligated. You are invited. Every offering, no matter the size, becomes a whisper that says, "Keep the light moving." Oh, if you give because your spirit feels expanded, not because you feel pressured. If you cannot give now, your presence, your prayer, and your listening heart are already gifts. Every form of support, whether silent or seen, helps this message reach the ones still wandering through their own winters. And if this message has touched the quiet part of you that still believes in new beginnings, write in the comments, "Light returns." It's more than a phrase, it's a prophecy. When you write it, you're declaring that the darkness has done its job and the dawn has begun. You're speaking restoration into your own story and echoing heaven's promise that nothing truly lost stays gone forever. Chosen one. Heaven's restoration begins with people who choose love over lack. You are one of them. You are the lighthouse built from every storm you survived. And as your light begins to shine again, remember, generosity is not measured by how much you give, but by how open your heart remains while you give it. The economy of heaven is simple. What you release returns, multiplied and sanctified. So keep flowing, keep shining, keep building. Restoration is not coming, it's already here, breathing through every corner of your life. Chosen one. By now you have begun to understand that true abundance isn't only about what flows into your hands, it's about what fills your heart. The journey through lack, through loss, through the slow lessons of surrender, has brought you to this sacred truth. Contentment is the crown that no thief can steal. The world tells you that peace comes after prosperity, that you'll rest once you arrive. But heaven reverses the order. It says, rest first, and then abundance will recognize you. Because peace is not the result of having more, it's the ability to trust even with less. Crowned in contentment, that is the season you're entering. It doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop straining. You begin to move through life like a river that no longer crashes against its banks but flows steadily, knowing that its course was written long before it began. There was once a chosen one named Ilara. For years she chased stability, working endlessly, saving tirelessly, hoping that one day she'd finally feel safe. But no matter how much she achieved, there was always that quiet emptiness waiting at the end of the day. One morning, exhausted, she prayed not for more, but for peace. And in that stillness, she felt it a presence so gentle, it needed no proof. From that moment, her entire life changed. She still worked, still dreamed, but no longer from desperation. Joy replaced anxiety. Effort became expression, not survival. The Word of God declares in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 11, I have learned, in whatever state I am, to be content. That verse is not resignation, it's revelation. Contentment is not the absence of desire, it's the presence of trust. It's the quiet confidence that God's timing is perfect, that what's meant for you cannot pass you, and that you already hold everything essential within your spirit. Chosen one. Peace is wealth. Gratitude is gold. Joy is inheritance. When you stop measuring your worth by possessions and start measuring it by presence, something miraculous happens. You stop striving, and you start shining. The crown of contentment fits only those who have walked through fire without losing faith. You've earned it not by perfection, but by perseverance. Every moment you chose to worship instead of worry, every time you decided to breathe instead of break, heaven was shaping that crown for you. Think of a mountain after rain. The surface looks scarred, but beneath it, the soil is richer. That's what has happened inside you. The storms didn't strip you, they strengthened you. You now carry within you a serenity that circumstances can no longer control. This contentment doesn't mean complacency. It means clarity. You're no longer chasing things to prove your worth. You build now from wholeness, not from hunger. What once felt like striving has turned into stewardship. You work with grace, give with ease, and rest without guilt. Heaven delights in that posture, the still heart that knows its source. Because a content soul becomes a vessel, heaven can trust with more. When peace governs your priorities, increase comes without turmoil. You stop holding your breath, waiting for the next crisis, and start inhaling the rhythm of divine rest. This is what true prosperity feels like, not adrenaline, but assurance, not performance, but peace. You don't need to prove your faith anymore, you simply live it. Chosen one. Look at how far you've come. Once, you measured your days by what was missing. Now you count them by what remains. You used to chase blessings. Now you attract them by your stillness. This is the paradox of heaven. The quieter your heart becomes, the louder your blessings grow. And when others look at you, they won't see someone who made it in the world's eyes. They'll see someone who became it, peace in motion, grace in form, serenity made visible. Crowned in contentment doesn't mean your story ends in stillness. It means it continues in strength. You will still dream, still move, still build, but without fear. You'll learn to hold tomorrow lightly because you trust the hands that hold you now. Chosen one. Rest in this sacred truth. Abundance built on anxiety collapses. But abondance built on contentement endure. You have entered that enduring place, the calm center of divine flow, where nothing is missing, nothing is wasted, and nothing can be taken from you. You are crowned, not because of what you have, but because of who you've become, and from this peace, you will build differently, slower, wiser, deeper. What you create now will carry heaven's fingerprint because it's born from rest, not rush. The crown you wear is invisible, yet its glow will light every path you walk. Chosen one. This is where the story reaches its summit, the place where everything you've endured, learned, and surrendered becomes authority. You have been refined through the furnace of lack, the silence of waiting, the storms of fear, and the training of trust. And now, Heaven places in your hands what was always destined for you. Dominion. Financial dominion isn't arrogance, it's assignment. It is the ability to govern resources with reverence, to direct abundance toward purpose instead of pride. You've graduated from survival and stepped into stewardship. Dominion means you no longer chase provision, you command it through alignment, obedience, and wisdom. This authority doesn't roar, it radiates. It's not loud power, it's quiet confidence. When you speak now, heaven echoes. When you decide, creation responds. Because your authority is no longer rooted in ambition, it's anchored in humility. There was once a chosen one named Arian. He had spent years believing that power was proven through accumulation. The more he earned, the more empty he became. One night, he prayed not for wealth, but for wisdom, and in that stillness, God whispered, "I cannot trust you to rule over what you still fear." From that night, Arian stopped fearing loss. He began to see money not as master, but as messenger, and soon, his resources began to flow effortlessly because his heart finally ruled instead of reacted. As written in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 18, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth, that He may establish His covenant." No, that is the foundation of dominion, not pride, but purpose. God gives power to produce, not to hoard, but to fulfill His promise through you. The wealth that finds you now is no accident. It's an instrument. It carries assignment and accountability. Chosen one. Financial dominion is not about numbers, it's about narrative. It's about rewriting the story of scarcity that once defined your family, your mind, your world. It's the fulfillment of every prayer whispered through tears. Heaven didn't just rescue you from lack, it trained you to lead others out of it. This authority will require balance grace with grit, confidence with compassion, because when heaven crowns you with influence, it also clothes you with responsibility. The flow you now command will pass through your hands to bless others. The same God who multiplied loaves will now multiply through you. Dominion also means discernment. Not every opportunity will be for you. Some will glitter but not grow. You will need to distinguish between good and God, between what flatters your ego and what fulfills your purpose. Dominion is not having everything, it's knowing you don't need everything to have peace. Think of Joseph, once a prisoner, later a ruler. His authority didn't begin in Pharaoh's palace, it began in the pit, where he learned faith. You, too, have been in your pit, your prison, your process. Every trial has been a rehearsal for leadership. Now that the stage is set, heaven trusts you with the treasury of wisdom you once prayed for. Chosen one. When you walk in dominion, wealth no longer intimidates you. It recognizes you. It knows you are a vessel, not a vault. You carry the blueprint of heaven's generosity, and through you, others will find freedom. You will speak life into broken systems. You will mentor, give, rebuild, restore. You will show others that abundance is holy when handled with humility. The world will call it success, but heaven will call it stewardship. Financial dominion doesn't look like greed, it looks like grace. It's the freedom to give without fear, to lead without pride, and to live without anxiety. You've been prepared for this. Every battle with scarcity, every test of trust. Every tear shed in faith was building this moment. Now, walk in it, not with arrogance, but with awareness. Heaven's resources move through hearts that know their source. You are no longer asking for permission to prosper. You are walking in divine commission. Chosen one. Your anointing for financial dominion is not just for you, it's for every soul connected to your obedience. You will become the evidence that light wins, that faith works, and that those who trust God never walk in lack for long. And as you step forward, remember this truth: the crown you carry is not made of gold, but of grace. It shines not because of what you've earned, but because of what you've endured. You are wealth walking, not measured by what you hold, but by what you release. Chosen one. You've walked the full circle from pain to purpose, from survival to stewardship, from trembling faith to unshakable authority. Every lesson written in these words has been preparing you for this: to live awake, aware, and anchored in divine flow. You no longer chase provision, you embody it. You no longer ask, "When will it come?" because you've realized it was inside you all along. Every trial carved wisdom. Every delay built depth. Every prayer taught you how to see differently. Now, heaven and earth move in rhythm with your surrender. This is the season to walk gently but powerfully, to remember that you are not striving toward the light. You are the light. Everything you touch, speak, and build carries the fingerprint of divine intention. You've become the proof that obedience never leaves a soul empty. If these words have spoken to you, if something in your spirit feels seen or renewed, then let that gratitude move quietly through action. Like this message as an echo of agreement, a simple nod to heaven that says, "I hear you." Share it as a gesture of compassion. Think of it like releasing a lantern across the water, one that may drift far, but will find the eyes of someone who needs its glow tonight. Subscribe if you desire to stay connected to this current of words and revelation, not out of habit, but as an act of alignment, a way of saying, "I want to keep walking with light." Now, and if your heart feels stirred to give, to support this ongoing river of messages, consider a donation, not as transaction, but as participation. It's like adding a drop of your own light into the stream so it can reach new shores, whether large or small. Each gift whispers, "Let hope travel farther." And finally, if this message has truly touched your soul, write in the comments, "I carry the light." Because you do. You always have. This journey was never about becoming something new. It was about remembering what you already were. Walk forward in that knowing. Chosen one. The world is waiting for your radiance.